Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our, thank you for the, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our July 14th, 2026 Ogden City City Council and Redevelopment Agency meetings. This will be the special city council meeting, and let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. Councilmember Myers is here somewhere. We expect him to walk in any minute. So we have our opening ceremony. We've asked Vice Chair Graff if he would lead us in the pledge.
Please rise and join me if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much.
Please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Council members, are there any acknowledgements you'd like to make note of today? Okay. We have the next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the field trip of June 30th, 2026. Councilmember Ritchie.
Yes, Chair, I reviewed those robust minutes and found them to be accurate and make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes. Now we have new business. This is our City Council midterm vacancy procedures resolution. We've got our Executive Director, Mr. Glenn Symes, here to present for us.
Thank you.
This is a riveting conversation. Thanks. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Chair, members of the council. So this is a step that's required by state code in the overall council vacancy process. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of background information and then just touch on the resolution itself and talk through the process that you will be going through next week to fill the vacancy. So the overall timeline, we are pretty much right in the middle of it right now. So on July 1st, we did receive a letter of resignation from Councilmember Myers. The application period opened for those interested in filling the vacancy. That opened on July 6th, and then today is July 14th, where you will consider this resolution. And then tomorrow at 5 p.m., the application period closes. Next Tuesday, July 21st, the candidate interviews and the selection process will take place. And then July 31st, the vacancy will become effective. And then on August 1st, the newly appointed council member will take office. So this particular part of state code is why we're here tonight. And it requires you as a council to adopt either an ordinance or a resolution that identifies a fair and transparent method that the municipal body will use to break a tie in a couple of situations. And as I go through this, it's step 3, but I'll go through all of those. But in a particular case, after the initial vote, if one candidate does not receive the majority of the vote, you need to have a method excuse me, to break a tie. So break a tie between 3 or more candidates, or where one candidate received the most votes but not the majority and 2 other candidates tie, you need to have that tie-breaking method there. So that's the reason we're here tonight with this agenda item. So here's kind of the big picture, and I'll go through these step by step of what you'll expect next week. So step 1 is to interview all qualified candidates. As of today, we have 12 qualified candidates who have submitted their information. An initial vote will be taken after you do all of those interviews. And as I mentioned, if in this step 2 there isn't one individual who receives a majority of the vote, you would need to go to step 3. And step 3 is the elimination by lot to determine the top 2 finalists. This is where this resolution comes into play. And if we do step 3, we move on to step 4, where you would re-interview the top 2 candidates, vote on the top 2 candidates, If that doesn't result in a winner, then we go to step 5 with the coin toss. So, and I'll go through a little bit more detail on all of those. So step 1, what you'll expect to see next week, as I mentioned, is you will interview all the qualified candidates. The candidates will be given 4 minutes to answer all the questions. There'll be a set of questions that are presented and shown in the room so everybody can see those at the same time. And the order of the interviews will be determined by pulling names randomly from a bowl. There were a number of different methods that we talked about. That was the one that was decided upon. So step 2, as I mentioned, is the initial vote from among all the candidates. So it'll be a roll call vote. So each of your names will be called and you will say the name of an individual you would like to fill the vacancy. If one of those candidates does not receive a majority of the vote, or if one does receive a majority of the vote, then that candidate will fill the vacancy. If not, then we move to step 3. So this is where I feel like this was a bit of a casino game, so I apologize for that. But if one individual does not get a majority, then the votes among the council should fall into one of these 3 basic categories. So, and again, this is all based on state code. So if we have the top 2 finalists that are identified, so for example, if one candidate receives 3 votes, another candidate receives 3 votes, and then a third candidate just receives 1, we clearly have our top 2 candidates that would move on to the next round. Likewise, 3-2, 1-1, 2-2, 1-1-1. So that's where we can identify the top 2 finalists. The next column is where one finalist can be identified, but a second cannot be identified. So one person gets 3 votes, 2 people get 2 votes. So in that case, we would need the tiebreaker. This, again, is where this resolution comes in. So the names of those 2 individuals in that top case would be put into a bowl. A name would be pulled. That individual would be the second finalist to move on to the next round. If no finalists are identified, that's the column on the right there. All those who have tied, their names again would be put into a bowl. 2 candidates would be pulled out. Those 2 would go to the next round. And again, this is all based on state code. So here's the state code again, this section that we're dealing with. And the method is specifically identified that it has to be by lot. So there are a number of those sort of casino games or whatever kind of games you want to come up with to identify somebody by lot. But they have to have, all the tied candidates, as it says here, have to have an equal chance of elimination. So there's not a lot of options, but that's the one that we chose was pulling names out of a bowl. So again, it is by lot. That's what the requirement is in state code. So if we go through step 3, we get to step 4. There's a second vote. So we are anticipating the council would re-interview the top 2 candidates. Candidates to be given 5 minutes to answer some additional questions that we would post, and again, a roll call vote would be taken. We move to step 5 if neither one of those candidates gets a majority. So if all 7 of you vote between those 2, then we should have a majority for one of those. But if for whatever reason nobody gets a majority or somebody does not vote, this was the case in Salt Lake where they had one candidate or one council member who was disqualified, and so they just had 6 council members who were voting. That ended in a tie. Again, based on state code, that is broken with a coin toss, and that's how they did it in Salt Lake just last month. So the resolution identifies ways to alphabetize people, put them in order, assign who gets heads, who gets tails. The city recorder gets the fantastic job of flipping the coin and doing all that. So we all have an assignment in this process. So the requirement, again, this resolution is required by state code, and it outlines those steps that I went through, and then it identifies that fair and transparent method, and then the rest is a general recitation of state code as far as the process goes. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Any questions for Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn, does the city recorder also draw the lot in step 2?
Yes, I believe so, yeah. Yeah, the initial pulling of the names, so the order of the initial interviews will be pulled from names from a bowl. The chair will do that. But yeah, beyond that, it would be the recorder.
Any other questions for Glenn? Just for kicks, legal, do you want to weigh in on any of this stuff since it's all trying to follow the law?
We've looked at it all, everything's in the.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we
Pass proposed resolution 2026-9.
Second?
We have a motion by Council Member Lindell, seconded by Vice Chair Graff, to adopt Resolution 2026-9. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lundell,
Yes.
Councilmember Myers,
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember Washington,
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff,
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Makes me feel good. We're finally in compliance with state law after all these years. So, all right. Next item on our agenda today is public comment. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Please come to the microphone, give us your name and city, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I'm Joseph Bauman, lifelong citizen of Ogden, Utah, and a proud member to belong to the Ogden City. I have a silver lining for you about draining of the dam. We had our water board meeting with all the Pineview systems all afternoon today, and we did some archive research, the district manager. What we found out is when the dam was drained in 1992, they drained it down, and if I recall, I think it was down to 14,000 cubic acre, or 14,000 acre feet. And it filled in 93 because they had a normal winter process. So what we're draining it down to now to do the construction work, with what we had snowfall for this past winter was 41,000 acre feet. So with the carryover, with what they drain it to, we'll end up with about 58,000 acre feet, which will get us through the irrigation system pretty much. I mean, it'll be empty, but then the prognosis is for 2027 will be a harsh winter, so we'll be able to fill it. And if we have a normal winter this year coming up, we'll have a full allotment of 110,000 acre feet, so the dam will be full. So we don't have to worry about that, so I don't have to worry sleep. And then the other thing that we had is we've had a tremendous amount of phone calls. People calling in the office at Pineview saying, if they're gonna drain the dam, how come we can't use the water? And we made a decision today that we're gonna still monitor the allotted amount of water that each property has. And if they exceed that, we're still gonna send them notice and let them know that they'll be put on notice, and if they continue through this season, that we'll turn the water off. And we're using it as a learning process. I mean, we don't want to penalize people, because some people think that if they use the water, it'll recharge the aquifer system, which is partially true, because we have the aquifers are being depleted. But it'll help with that. But anyway, that's a positive thing that's happening for the water, so we don't have to worry about that. And then also, Councilman Meyer, I want to thank you.
Okay, we're gonna put that in the books. Joe, that's good, okay.
I'll sign it for you.
Okay, that's good, thank you. Who's next?
Hi, I'm Steve Jones, and as you can see from my shirt, I'm very interested in Union Station. Just simply, real quickly, would like to thank the council and the administration for all the focus that's been put on Union Station, for acknowledging the importance of everything that we have there, and just simply encourage you to move as quickly as is practical to do things in a transparent and open way. The biggest thing I could suggest as far as making that transparency happen is get the Union Station Advisory Committee reconstituted, have it a charter that gives it some teeth and some serious involvement in the process. So again, thank you all for keeping things moving forward and recognizing how important that anchor to all of Ogden is to every one of us.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
appreciate the Union Station Foundation's participation in this process too.
Takes me 3 minutes to get up here. My name is Bill Dodge. You guys are used to hearing us complain most of the time when we come up to this podium, so I thought I'd just kind of tell you a little bit of a good story tonight, and I want to put some background to it. Some of you that have been here for a long time are aware of this, some of you may not know. The old Bamberger line that used to go between here and Salt Lake, the reason it was originally built, because Bamberger also owned Lagoon, and they wanted people from Ogden and from Salt Lake to be able to get to Lagoon as well as going between the two cities. And some of you may also know that after the railroad was removed, after it went bankrupt, the state bought most of that land, and that's where I-15 is today. It follows most of the Bamberger route down past Lagoon to Salt Lake. I was listening to KSL last Friday night after I left our Friday night meeting, in fact. I was on my way home, and there's a program called The Bright Side. And they're just talking about various things. And lo and behold, they were talking about the Frontrunner station in Farmington and how people have to get over to Lagoon. They have to take a shuttle bus around I-15 to get to Lagoon, interestingly enough. And he says there's conversation going on to build a road under I-15 so people can get to Lagoon, which I thought was kind of interesting. Of course, I'll undoubtedly never live long enough to see it. But in the process of their conversation, they were pointing out, said, we don't like the way that Provo's Frontrunner Station is. And they didn't like the way Salt Lake Frontrunner Station was set up. They said, you know what, those guys down in Ogden, they got it figured out. They're doing it right. He said, I took the Frontrunner down to Ogden recently and got off right out here by Union Station. I was able to walk right up into the center of Ogden. I can't do that on any of these other places. So there's people outside of Ogden are noticing, and this redevelopment project is important for Ogden. It is a big deal, and it will bring people here to spend their money in Ogden. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to play two roles here. First, I'm Terry McCullough. I live in North Ogden, but I was a school teacher in Ogden School District for 23 years. I can't even tell you how many undocumented people I probably taught, but I didn't care, so I didn't ask. Great individuals. One of my students got a hold of me, and his father has been taken. Now, I have no idea whether there was anything wrong, whether he had a warrant. I do not know that. I just know that he was taken, and he can't find him. And everybody I know can't find him. So how do we find where these people are so that we can help them? I've got a young person not knowing what to do. I have met with the sheriff, and the sheriff indicated that they get as many phone calls as they need to find somebody, but no one has called. Do they just disappear? I'm a little concerned about that, because if there is something wrong, the family should know. Whether or not he did anything illegal, we just need to know where he's at. Now I'm going to put my other little thing on. Well, maybe. Now I've become the president of the League of Women Voters. And I'm going to read you our position on ICE and detention, and we do not reach a decision for any kind of a position statement without a huge study being done. The League of Women Voters of the United States strongly condemns the expansion of ICE and the current immigration detention system. The organization actively opposes funding for these agencies without strict accountability, measures put in place, advocating for an immigration system that upholds due process, protects human dignity, and respects civil liberties. That could go for any of us. Every single person should be able to have that. So that's where I come from with the League. I'm not representing the League when a student calls me. He doesn't know I'm a member of the League. But if somebody can figure out who do we contact? How do we find these people? And he's been there for 20, probably 26 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good evening. I'm James Humphreys. I am a resident here in Ogden. I've struggled with how to approach this subject for several months now. I can no longer remain silent and go to bed with a clear conscience. In the last week, the Immigration and Customs Agency shot and killed 2 additional Americans, one in Texas and one in Maine. There have been 11 shootings of individuals, both citizens and non-citizens, in the last year and a half in the United States. There have been more than 50 who have died in detention centers, more than in the entire history of ICE since its founding in 2003. This agency puts on a uniform and then regularly disgraces that uniform. And in doing so, they create harm to everyone who wears a uniform in this country, whether they're military or they're Ogden Police Department. They are a rogue agency that has no accountability, that has no independent verification of their actions, and now has more money than they clearly have brains. I am ashamed of the work being done by the federal government in our name. I realize that neither this body nor the administration has any right to do anything. The U.S. Supremacy Clause is very clear. We have been fortunate that in Utah and in our community here in Ogden, we have not experienced the kind of bad apples that have been sent to other cities throughout the country. But that does not mean that we can sit on our hands and be unprepared in case it does reach the streets and our community. I don't know how to respond or how to handle this, but as individual citizens, I believe the consent of the governed has been revoked, and therefore we should all prepare to act accordingly if those behaviors arrive to our neighborhoods and our homes. And as leaders of this community, I expect you to find a way individually to help us to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Who's next? We have a, oh, here we come. All right.
My name is Sarah Fisher. I'm an Ogden resident. It's been a long, sad week. So as y'all know, I've talked to you before about ICE activity, and I just want to emphasize and continue the conversation from last week. One thing I want to point out is that the city lawyer has mentioned that the administration can bring the conditional use permit and the parameters within it to the Planning Commission, and we would really like that discussion to continue. Another thing based on the conditional use permit, which Ogden did create for the ICE holding room, is that last week it was referenced, I believe, that the data that ICE gave saying they'd basically exceeded the limits of the conditional use permit were false. We've presented data from ICE itself contradicting this, and the fact that the city is considering dismissing the data as data entry errors doesn't sit right with the community, and it doesn't seem valid. It seems very concerning. Continuing on that, just for who is interested, many people in the community have talked to Weber County. We have talked to the sheriff. Those doors are open. That communication is happening as well. On that note, OPD has been seen more frequently with ICE. That's raising a lot of concern in the community. Another piece is if the city approved the use of the conditional use permit because it determined that there were conditions that were necessary to protect the community, what enforcement authority does the city have when those conditions are violated? And under what circumstances would the city exercise that authority? I've been here quite a few times. I don't want to be here tonight. I want to be at home with my family. but this is important because our questions haven't been answered adequately. I want to end with one other note. I recently helped a family where the husband was detained in March. They had 5 kids, 5 US citizens. I went to their house, I've seen this in person, and the mom said, you know, we have to self-deport. There's nothing else we can do. We've exhausted the end of our resources in this community. You know, they've had actually some really great support from case managers in this community helping the family. But one of the biggest things that jumped out, and this family did self-deport with their 5 US citizen kids, but I want to emphasize she wanted people to know that her husband wasn't a criminal, that they hadn't done anything wrong, and I think that's the case for a lot of people in our community. They aren't criminals, they're normal people being taken. I hope that we can have answers, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. We do have a couple hands online. Heath Sato.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I share a lot of those feelings that have been spoken about prior. But just tonight, I wanted to ask what makes JF Capital now appropriate for the Union Station project, because McWhinney was sort of the key thing that made them appropriate for that project. Their work on the Denver Union Station and other projects of that nature. And I just learned this week when the agenda came out that they were gone, and they've been gone for 2 years, and nobody I know knew anything about that. So I just wanted to find out what's going on with that, and do we have a replacement for them? Because I honestly don't believe the main developer by themselves is appropriate for this development. And I don't know if we have any means of clawing anything back at this point, but yeah, I'd like to know more about that and what we're planning on doing about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Heath. Another hand online, Linda.
Hi, Linda Sanchez. I just want to give a shout out to our fire department. They again had a really test up on the hillside, and my sister's house is up there. And in the middle of the night, when I woke up and I saw it, and I called her, actually I thought it was going to be a lot worse than what it was. So I just want to give them a shout out and how much we appreciate how much they serve and protect us, and watch for those wildfires and stuff like that. So as far as it looks like everyone's been talking a lot about ICE, I just would ask that maybe you watched the last city council meeting, and the mayor did have some remarks there that I feel like no matter how much we bring this up, this is a hard situation, and all of us would like, I'm sure, to have it go away, but there are some things that we do have to follow. And to remember that not only is the city a resource, but if you're wanting to talk federally, you have representatives, and if I'm hoping that we're also hitting them up as well so they can take that back to DC if that's what you're wanting your voice to be heard about. As I went up to Pineview today, and it is definitely getting lower, which is exactly what we talked about in the last city council meeting. My question is, seems that we are having possibly less water if we don't get a good snowfall. Is there any guardrails that we're putting into place or halting any extra expansion of use, like resources that the water is going to have to maintain until we ensure that we can provide the services for what we have now. That would be for residential and for businesses. I really haven't heard anything about that. So, if you could just let me know what's going on about that, I would appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Linda.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Bramwell. I was here last week for the meeting, but I didn't make it because when I arrived in Ogden, I found a homeless man that had built a fort on my front porch where there is clearly posted a no trespassing sign, one of the Ogden City signs that they can arrest anybody that sets foot on my property. This gentleman had been there for quite some time because he had constructed a fort. And so I called 911 and the police came and they were great. They gave him a citation. I don't believe they took him into custody because he had so many shopping carts full of belongings that the police didn't have anywhere to put those belongings in their vehicle, so they did not arrest him and take him to jail. They cited him and he will have to appear in court at a later date. I don't know for sure if trespassing was the only charge because I know they went through a sizable amount of his belongings with rubber gloves on. But I want to thank the police because they came out, they were very professional, they took care of the problem. But I want to reiterate that I'm very tired of dealing with this problem in Ogden City. I do not have a standing army to deal with homeless criminals that are trespassing on my property. And I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to pay a standing army to keep criminals off of my property. I think that is something that Ogden City should be providing me for the taxes that I pay to Ogden City. So I had some business in the county building today and I went in and I saw that there was a Department of Commerce, so I stepped in and kind of told them about some of the problems that I'm having in Ogden. And I asked if they had any solutions. I said, what do you think should go into this property that I own? The zoning has changed 4 times since I've owned it. I have no idea what it's supposed to be. I have no idea what Ogden City wants it to be or wants me to be. They really didn't have any solutions. They said, we don't deal with anything in Ogden City. You'll have to go to Ogden City. Well, I feel like I've gone to Ogden City hundreds of times and nobody from Ogden City has come up with any solutions to help me so far, other than sending the police when I call them, which is every week when I show up. But the one thing the guy did say in the Department of Commerce was the reason why we have so many homeless people in Ogden is because Salt Lake City during COVID shipped all their homeless people to Ogden. Well, Salt Lake City said the same thing during COVID, that every other city shipped their homeless people to Salt Lake City. Who's going to pay for all these homeless people that are being shipped to my property? Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Hello, I'm Thordoros, Ogden resident. I just want to... Homeless people are community members who, they come to places where resources are. It's, county has generally established resources here in Ogden, and there's arguments that have been made that that's a part of a sort of not in my backyard that has extended towards Ogden to kind of concentrate people here. And the way you do that is by first most building more housing and providing an avenue for people to get out of homelessness by having housing. And then the second way is by having resources be distributed more evenly. Besides that, in regards to ICE, ICE statewide, along with nationally, has been increasing. They've gone from the sort of ineffective but very scary sort of campaign, which they used to target Minneapolis and a couple other cities, to the much more effective and still targeted way that they're currently acting. They're still increasing their amount of people working, and the amount of raids has increased, perhaps not here, but in Salt Lake, as demonstrated by a recent raid that went quite public. And I know that the city is working on this. You've had the recent funding of the Pathway to Citizenship program. That's really great. That's awesome. You're doing exactly what we need you to do. Thank you for bringing that up. And there are other ways that you're currently working on this. And of course, if there is another avenue, I wish for you to pursue it. But I also want to mention that as members of the community, people who are so important in the community that they got elected, that personally, you can also be using your weight as community members to be doing events and campaigns locally to try to improve that. I want to thank Floor, particularly for your, I don't remember the name of the event, but it was an event that supported the community. I heard from Ogden United with Immigrants about how great that event was. I also remember specifically the People's Town Halls, which although they filled a need and had people's voices be heard, and that's really important in this time. And I just want everyone here to know that they're community leaders who are capable of doing things independent from this specific space, and that although they should act this space as they can, they should also step away from it and pursue things in the ways that they can as valuable and recognized community members. Thank you.
Thanks, Thor.
Hello, Annie Dunaway, local business owner. I wanted to talk about the developments that we're discussing over Union Station. One thing, develop Union Station. We're going to do it. It has to happen. There's not the point of we should or shouldn't do it. The issue is, are we creating an opportunity for community members to own a stake in these developments, or do we want to create perpetually poor renters? So are these developments including owner-occupied dwellings? And that's not what I'm hearing. And so are we going to continue to rob with these developments, rob future generations of equity, of intergenerational wealth, and an ability to be a stakeholder in Ogden? And I continue to see developments push forward that are for rentals. I'd like to see homeowners made here in Ogden, out of Ogden residents. Homeowners who are creating equity and stake in the future that their children will live. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Mayor, have you got any comments for us or answers for some of these questions?
I'll give it a shot. Joseph, thank you for the silver lining. I'm also told another silver lining is that our 36-inch water line is sitting on a portion of the Bamberger line in the canyon. I also want to mention that and reiterate that we are not draining the reservoir. First of all, I don't have the levers to that, although we have the authority to in order to repair the water line. We're not draining the reservoir in order to build a water line. We're taking advantage of a drought year, and a year that we anticipate and that the water managers anticipate that the reservoir will be very low, and that will allow us an opportunity to cross the reservoir, while it's low. If it's not low enough, we will drain it further in order to build the water line. I think it was Linda that mentioned water and asked if we're doing things to prioritize conservation, which we are, and we can provide those details at a later date. But we're talking about our drinking water. We're talking about culinary drinking water. This is a necessity for survival, not for ornamental grass, not for landscaping, but for our community and others to drink water. This is exceedingly important. This water line has been in need of repair for a long, long time. And I'm proud to say, in spite of the critics, I'm proud to say that our administration took it on day one, and the administration that are pushing it forward and getting it done before it's an emergency, and before we have a catastrophic failure and a public health emergency. I'm also really proud of the work that our administration's done to coordinate and collaborate with water managers, with fisheries managers, to make sure that we're capitalizing on a moment, using the term silver lining again. Nobody likes to see the drought circumstances. We don't want to see the reservoir drawing down because of drought. But if it's going to, let's capitalize on it so that we don't have to exercise our rights to drain it completely just for the water line. So a lot of people are saying that we're draining it just for the water line, and I'm going to continue to correct that record, while holding on and reserving the right to drain it a little bit further if we need to, because the water manager's projections are just projections. We're estimating, or they're estimating, where it'll be by the time construction period would arrive in the fall. We're hopeful they're accurate because it's close. So we'll deal with that when the time comes. But one way or another, we've got to provide safe, clean drinking water for our city. I'm also really proud of the collaboration with the fisheries managers to make sure that they know what's coming and how they can help us mitigate any impacts to the environment while it's happening. They've told me, and for transparency, I used to be a fish biologist. When I talk to these guys, I speak their language. They've seen this before. It was not permanent damage or catastrophic damage. Short-term consequences, certainly, to individual age classes of various species. But we're looking at opportunities for ways for us to have long-term benefit while the water's down by potentially providing some habitat options or things like that, while also improving boater access to construct the ramp while the water's down. So more silver lining, right? I guess, Terry, to your concerns about helping to find, where's Terry at? Behind the pillar, sorry. I'm happy to do what I can to help find and track the family member down. I think there are also legal services, nonprofit legal services, hopefully that could help, that I know that Councilmember Lopez is aware of. I think my only resources would probably be the same that you have, but maybe I have a stronger voice in it. But I would call the sheriff, I'd call a congressional delegation. That's what I've been doing as promised, pushing for a pathway for everyone. Sarah, I'm sorry that you had to be here tonight because you didn't feel like you got answers. Where's Sarah at? There you are, thanks. I didn't just dismiss the records as errors and trust it. I'm saying that it's very plausible that that there are typos within the data set that was provided. You mentioned that OPD is seen more frequently with ICE. I want to point out a conflict that I'm dealing with that I just want to highlight it because I think that we are going to see more pressure from ICE nationwide, and we're going to see it here. I think that we are seeing it here, and it alarms me and concerns me. One of the things that gives me peace and comfort is knowing that OPD can be there not to be involved in the issue on the ground, like the arrest or the interdiction, but to be there to help keep the peace for the public. I've said a million times I don't have control over ICE, but I do have control and some authority over OPD. And for me, I feel much better about the circumstances knowing that OPD is there to help keep the public safe, including those who are being apprehended or arrested or questioned. I have a lot of confidence and faith in OPD, and especially when compared to some of the things that I see on TV. And so that's why it's important to me that OPD continue to respond when called upon by dispatch. Many times they'll get a call from dispatch to back up a fellow law enforcement officer. Oftentimes I don't know who that is. They just show up, and they're going to continue to do that for all agencies. But when they get there, they know that they're not to be involved in the operation if it's ICE, but they are there to help ensure the safety of the community around the operation. As it relates to the conditional use permit, I want to just say, I don't know if anybody's ever considered the fact that if there were more room to detain people, if that would lead to more arrests. What do you think? And what do you think would happen if I were to revoke the conditional use permit? Do you think that that would encourage them to build more units to hold people? I just want to leave that question with you because it's a question that I ask myself when I make these decisions. Thank you, Linda, for calling out and recognizing our fire department. Conditions are really bad out there, and our fire department is on watch and ready to go. And I'm, just like OPD, very confident in our fire department, more confident in ours than any others, and very thankful for the work that they're doing to stand guard. But I'm also really thankful to the community for all the work that they're doing. Not all, as we saw a couple of nights ago. But by and large, the community's been really respectful of the conditions, really respectful of the fireworks ban, and I think that says a lot to the quality of and character of our community. So thank you for that. And Thor, you mentioned I have an opportunity to use my voice, and I just want to commit to you and tell you that I have been using my voice in the way that I promised that I would by pushing with our congressional delegation to find a pathway for everybody. I'm frustrated and sick and tired of not having that. And I'm sick and tired of the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., creating the circumstances that we don't. I'm also sick and tired of being criticized as a community and as a city when we're our city doing more and more and more than anybody. No other city is doing what we're doing with the Pathway program. We're doing everything we can with what we have, with all the resources that we have to help protect and give a pathway to the people that deserve it. That's just a fact. We're doing everything we can to keep our community safe, and so far it's bared out. We're going to keep doing everything we can. I just can't make promises and guarantees I can't keep because I just don't have control over those agents. For Heath's question on Jay Fisher, I'm going to ask Taylor to help me with that one.
And I appreciate Jared Johnson and his group and David Sawyer. They gave us a great presentation earlier on the Union Station, so I'm going to save a lot of those details. If you guys didn't get a chance to do that are online or other places, please go back and watch the work session. There's a lot of great information. The short question that Heath asked was about Jay Fisher and are they capable of moving the work forward and continuing to be our development partner? I think to this point, the question we've been asking is what does the vision of Union Station look like? We're talking about the layout, we're talking about what comes next, what developments can come in, what can happen. And largely, I think when they made their original proposal, of which I wasn't a part of when they had the RFP, Jared, I don't know that you and your group were part of that, and that was a different staff at the time that made the decision. But they were asking the questions around what does it take and what do we need to do to develop. At the time, I believe McQuinney was part of it, and I think they were doing the Union Station component. Jay Fisher was looking at the office and retail component that would be outside of it. So if we're looking at can Jay Fisher do office and retail and commercial, I believe they're capable of doing that, yes. Can they do the Union Station itself with the historic preservation and everything else that we need? That's the important question that I think that everyone here is probably asking. When we are talking about preserving what we believe is our most important asset here at the station, that's something that the mayor's tasked us with to take as something incredibly important. So how do we do that? We work with our residents, we work with the people that have a know-how of where they need to be, and it's what we should be doing anyway. Because I would say even if we invited someone from outside of our community to be participating in what's happening, we would still want to hear from those same voices around our community because they're the ones who care about it the most. We care about it. We know it's important to us. That's why we're spending so much time doing it. So if we want to talk about what the next steps are, I would encourage us, we actually put a lot of this online, so go to unionstation-ogden.com, see where we are in the process, see where we are and what comes next and what we need to do, and we can continue to have those questions around, you know, what comes next in the process. I think people forget that there's more public process that still needs to happen. There's still development agreements that needs to happen, and there's still a master development agreement. There's a lot of questions that we're still working through on the Union Station that's going to take us time and effort to get to. I appreciate Jay Fisher and the work that they've done to date on that project. I think they've given us a good foundation and framework. They've worked with us on a lot of great things. So to just say that they're immediately unqualified is probably a hard conversation to have at this point when I feel like we've had a lot of good information we've provided. But the one thing I can tell you is we have a lot of qualified people within the city, and we have a lot of qualified people who are in this room with us tonight that are residents, amongst others, that trust, believe, and know what needs to happen with the Union Station. And that's where we're going to work and try and put the most effort is into those voices and into the community and back into that building.
Thanks, Taylor. And I'll just mention, I think that the original RFP was done through UTA as our development partner prior to our staff, but also we have made a lot of progress in our current efforts. I think we've healed a lot of wounds and built more bridges than that were burned in the past. And I just want to say, and I think Jay Fisher and their contractors deserve some credit in that too, because they've really pressed pause with us. They've gone back to the design board. They've shown up for all the open houses, of which we've had 1 million. They have been there to help us get through the bumps in the road that we've been through. And we've made more progress with them as a partner. And I think that it would be a huge setback if we didn't continue to go down that route. I do think it's important that they also recognize that they also have the ability to bring on additional partners as the main development partner to oversee any historical elements of the project that are to come, but which are a ways out still. So nothing is imminent in terms of the development, that's for sure, but we are planning and preparing and hopeful that we're taking important steps soon. And I do look forward to having development partners that have the historical background necessary. And I forgot, Annie, amen to your comment. I would love to see ownership elements within the projects. There are laws that are going to require certain mixes for us, and then we also can't legislate ownership type, unfortunately. But I love the idea of ownership product as much as possible, and that's why my administration has pushed that as a priority. And even though we inherited 3,200 entitled apartment units, which we've had to churn through and that we take the quote blame for, we have aggressively pivoted toward ownership in our community. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Council members, any comments?
Chair, I'd like to I want to thank Linda again for bringing up the fire department. I should have brought that up in the acknowledgements portion. I got up Saturday morning and saw the alert and on my run just ran down kind of in that area, and it was really cool to see the line of men and women of the fire department and the surrounding agencies physically standing between the fire and the homes and drawing that line to protect our community. And it was really cool. And the fire seemed mostly contained at that point, but they were all still just working very, very hard. Nobody was standing around. They all had things that they were doing. So that was really remarkable to see that level of commitment to the community and to their jobs and what they're doing. I also just want to voice and just say I appreciate everyone who's come tonight to share their thoughts and feelings on what's going on in our community. I want to thank the mayor and the police chief for their efforts and how we're responding to these national pressures and what's going on. And I do understand there are a lot of frustrations surrounding the issue, and that's definitely valid. Those concerns that are being experienced, and what can we do? We appreciate hearing what you're sharing with us, and as we work with. I've had conversations with different members of our state legislature and as well as Congressman Moore, and just that's something that all we can do is relay that information on. So anyway, appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman Ritchie. Anyone else?
Yeah, Chair. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight, for your participation in our city council meeting. As I haven't had an invite to go to the ICE hold room, I took it on myself before the work session today to go knock on the door. I knocked on the door and said, I'm a representative of Ogden City Council, and I know lots of our community members have questions about this facility. May I come in? They said no, but I did get I did get a contact number that apparently we need to run through the West Valley main office, and so I will continue to reach out to that phone number and try to get just another set of eyes to see what's happening there, and just trying to respond to everyone's comments and asking for more oversight, and I'm looking forward to trying to do that job. Thank you.
Anyone else?
May I?
Yes.
So I just want to enforce, Terry, if you, I'm willing to help you and connect you with the lawyers I in the past week, I host a workshop, and they were very helpful. And they present, and I'm sorry, I know you were there, but everything was in Spanish. And they present what to do in case someone is detained, and the step by step. And I have all that information I'm willing to share with you as well, and put the lawyers in your services. The same for any family who need it. So thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, thank
Councilmember
you.
Washington.
I just want to echo, again, just everyone staying involved across the board of everything that's happening in our beloved city, from residents to business owners to those that love to come to our community, whether it's in the mountains or downtown. So thank you for coming out and speaking and reaching out to council with your concerns or your compliments. I do want to raise that in the last week, when it comes to parking, there was some buzz online just about confusion between the diamond parking for the hotel and then in Electric Alley, where the city parking starts. I drove all around it just to look at the different lines, and it is slightly confusing. Things are fading, but I know the mayor said that signage is being worked on. But unfortunately, that individual was double charged from paying for city parking and then being fined for not paying for diamond parking. And then I was curious if our parking ambassadors work past 5 p.m., even though paid parking is through 8 p.m. And then also just seeing online as well that the DMV has reached out just with concerns about paid parking for people that may need to access services at the DMV. I would additionally like to just update that I was able to meet with Sheriff Arbon. It was just yesterday, and I sent over my notes to the sheriff for his review before sharing them with the council and with the community. From the sheriff, he presented the data that he had from November to January, November of last year to January of this year. But he is in the process of working with his team of updating that data that he will share with the community and with council members and administration as it becomes available. The data will go from February through July of this year. And so Sheriff Arbon also let me know that he is open to presenting information on the 287G agreements and the data to council during a work session. So he was open to that, to coming into one of our work sessions. Sheriff also clarified that the Weber County Sheriff's Department has two 287G agreements, the task force model and the jail enforcement model. The jail enforcement model has specifically on that certified corrections deputies interview and process individuals booked into the jail on state or local criminal charges to determine whether they may be removable under federal immigration law. Sheriff Arbon showed the data indicating that most detainees come from the jail enforcement model. Weber County Jail has had the jail enforcement model for 20 years. The three categories in which ICE would be notified is reentry, criminal history, or removal order or detainer. I was also during the meeting, Sheriff Arbon called the officer who transports the detainees to the Weber County Jail to the ICE hold room. The officer confirmed that detainees are transported to the hold room, kept there for processing, and then when picked up after processing, they are taken back to the Weber County Jail if the detainee needs to remain in custody. No detainee from the Weber County Jail is left at the ICE hold facility outside of operating hours. Additionally, I asked the sheriff if he had toured the ICE hold room, and he described the interior as a small office-like reception area with a desk near the building's entrance. Then across from that area, there are two smaller rooms on a wall across from that area, each room with heavy metal doors. Sheriff Arbon described the holding rooms as relatively small and stated that if approximately 20 people occupied one room, there would be standing room only. Sheriff Arbon reached out to the field officer for the ICE hold room here in Ogden and asked if the officer would give me a tour of the facility. I'm still waiting for a response from the sheriff. And then an additional statement that Sheriff Arbon put in, emailed to me. He emphasized that Weber County Sheriff's Office does not conduct immigration enforcement based on race, ethnicity, language, or appearance. Deputies must have independent lawful basis for any stop, detention, or arrest, and all enforcement actions are governed by constitutional standards and applicable law. Applicable law, thank you. So I just wanted to share those updates.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll take a minute. I'm a little bit of a water geek. I kind of get into that stuff, and I've toured the water treatment plant several times. Spent a little time with our engineers, and I've been and toured these construction sites, both when we were putting in the 24-inch water line that turned out to be a big long soaker hose for the canyon, and it was leaking a lot of water, and the 36-inch water line is proving to be also quite the leaker. We have, I think it is fortuitous that we do have such the timing is such that it is that our water usage is going to take the level of Pineview down naturally, near to the point where we can work on the water line and allow us to save millions more gallons of water every day after we get this new water line in. If it was all money and if it was an investment, this would be a great investment to fix this water line at this state and time. So I hate to see the criticism that's coming to some of our people saying, well, you're just draining all this water and it's wasteful, and because I don't think it is. I think the way it's working out, it's working out to suit the city and to save water at the same time. I also want to thank our fire department. I got the text that Councilmember Ritchie sent early that morning. He gets up earlier than I do on a Saturday. And so I got this text saying that there's this fire up on the hill. And I looked up, I live right there. I mean, I can throw a rock from my front house or my front door and hit that fire. But they were, I went up there, and the fire department, the first thing they did was to enforce a perimeter so that those homes didn't get fire near them. And then they started working on the containment. We've got really good people. The Forest Service joined in. They were dumping water on that thing all day long until late in the afternoon. It was impressive to be that close to watch them fight that fire. And they did a professional job, a really good job. And it was a hot day, just in case you wanted to know. And those turnouts are not light and airy. They're pretty, I'm sure they were dying in those things. But I wanted to thank them for the good work that they did. And also, since we talked about our vacancy process, it's because our good council member Myers has accepted another assignment that nobody could blame him for doing that. But I wanted to thank you, Sean, for answering the call to serve your city as a council member. I know that you had to have your arm twisted a little bit in order to file, but you've done a great job, and you've been a good ambassador for the city, and I really appreciate the work that you've done, and my association with you as a colleague for the last 2.5 years, and I just wanted to call you out and appreciate you for the good work that you've done. So, okay, are there any more comments from council members? I'll look for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie, seconded by Councilmember Washington to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I think that was unanimous. All right, we do have one more meeting, ladies and gentlemen. We'll wait till our recorder is ready and reset for this next one.
Thanks, Mayor. See you, Sean. Thank
Hey, we're putting that one in the book, Joseph.
Pardon me?
We're putting your prediction in the book. That,
Hey, you want me to sign it? I'm on my knees.
okay, good deal.
Yeah, I figured, I was surprised.
Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our July 14th, 2026 Ogden City Redevelopment Agency meeting. I'll let the roll call reflect that all board members are present tonight. The first item on our agenda is the reports from administration, the Thorstensen Building Land Transfer and Development Agreement Amendment. So we have, looks like we have Eric Gibson going to present to us today. Welcome.
Thank you, board members. Appreciate it. All right, so just as a reminder of what the ask is in front of the board today, Lotus Company is requesting to change the current contract terms of an existing contract. It's a 2015 LTDA. The current terms of that contract is for 30 high-end urban loft-style apartments or condos, and the request that has been made by Lotus is to change that contract via an amendment to 25 artist loft concepts that will be using federal and state historic tax credits. I did provide a background on this contract. I want to revisit that quickly just to make sure that we have that fresh in mind as this decision comes. The 2015 LTDA was a very comprehensive contract that included a variety of properties. It was quite a bundle, and there were two in there that were pretty much the properties that questioned the Proudfit building and the Thorstensen building, both of those of which were under contract by the RDA, and the RDA then assigned those out to Lotus to actually close on the properties. Here's just a quick map of where those are located. More specifically, the Thorstensen building, the building in question, is the one that's located immediately adjacent to Lindquist Field, between the field and Grant Avenue. There were multiple commitments that were made by both parties, the RDA as well as Lotus, related to that 2015 contract. Many of these commitments were unmet by both sides. So inclusive of that was that both parties anticipated that there was going to be a new parking facility that would be developed on the corner property. And that's where the corner cafe is located, that building there. And the Berthana building. So that's kind of where that corner property anticipated to have the parking structure. And then there was also a commitment that the city would lease some space in the Hearst building. Related specifically to the Thorstensen building, Lotus did in that contract stipulate they would construct 30 of those units that were going to be apartments or condos, that there'd be market rate high end. They also anticipated that they would close on the commercial units on the main level, that bottom floor, to third parties. So you have the Bott Patton Architects as well as Mercury Cycles. This was a commitment of a third party that wasn't a party to that contract. They didn't sign, and that was done. Lotus also committed to renovating and improving the commercial units, as well as the residential units on the top floors. And finally, Ogden City committed to providing access to 35 parking stalls in the Grant parking structure just across the street from that property. In terms of what was done in the interim, the RDA did execute a parking easement agreement for those stalls. The architects in Mercury Cycles never actually occupied those bottom floor spaces. Lotus had to find new tenants. Utah and Creative Advertising were those tenants that ended up occupying. In the case of Utah, there were some very significant tenant improvements that had to be made. It is a beautiful space. If you've been in there, you're able to see those giant barrels, but that cost a lot for them to do that. Those were completed in 2018. In the interim, Lotus also started the process for a condo application in order to fulfill that other agreement in terms of trying to make those high-end units. However, that application did not complete for the condos. Then the city requested with them to pivot to office use. There was a prospective software company that was looking at that space and was interested in occupying it, but that didn't close. And then 2019 came around. They were continuing to look for solutions on how to reutilize that space, trying to think of solutions. There was a fitness study that was completed for that potential use, but then when 2020 happened and COVID happened, a lot of that commercial activity halted. A lot of businesses decided not to move forward on projects. And so it was stopped in the short run, and then the market crashed, and it became very challenging to try to move forward on that project. Within the last several years, Lotus has applied for and was awarded federal and state historic tax credits to try to move forward on that project and try to change it into a different type of use, which would be back to that original intent of the residential use, but in this case, it would be for the lower income type units. Here is an example of what they are proposing as that use, is to do artist lofts and to try to bring in some of that cultural heritage and the historic heritage. And they reference the Nine Rails Creative District as part of that planning that they have provided for what they're trying to do with those lofts. When asked for why the change from the 30 units to the 25, this is their response. It comes down to that was a better utilization of that space in terms of window access, code, providing enough room for the live-work concept they're proposing, that this is a better solution. They also have added clubhouse amenity space on that third floor so that it provides a higher quality of life for those tenants. In terms of the fiscal impacts of that proposed change, moving to a fewer number of units and larger units will lower the valuation slightly. Having it be income restricted could potentially lower the valuation slightly, and then it will also lower the number of fees that are collected by the city. Those are often unit-based, unit count-based, and so that will have a small impact on the city's finances. However, if the board does not approve this request, then the space will remain vacant for the foreseeable future. And that carrying cost would be borne by Lotus. That is a business risk that they accepted as part of this contract, and they do have the contract, but they don't have a currently proposed solution for how they would utilize that space and try to meet that obligation of market rate units. For the remainder of the LTDA, we have spoken with Lotus, and they are interested in renegotiating the remainder of the contract, trying to clean that up, trying to clear out some of those things, such as the anticipated parking structure, and trying to get a better understanding of a pathway forward on those bundle of properties. Approving this request would allow us to remove that building from consideration and could simplify that process and simplify that overall contract. You had also requested, and we spoke about this last week, regarding the housing market and potential impacts that change would have on the housing market. Jeremy and I gave a lot of information for those who were not able to view all those charts, and I would invite you to take a look at the work session last week. But in terms of the overall takeaways, Ogden City does have a lot of population growth that's happening. Weber County has a lot of population growth. Utah has a good population growth. And so there is a demand for new housing. There was a question of if allowing this would kind of move people from older LIHTC product types to this newer one. And that doesn't seem to be the case, just because of the amount of demand that there is and the high housing costs. Second, the cooling residential market. Home prices are going down, lease rates are going down slightly. That has made it where the revenue side of the ledger is harder for projects to pencil. And then on the expenses side, they're seeing quite an increase in construction costs. Materials are up, gas prices are up, and so those costs have increased in the interim since this contract was originally created. It's much harder to make that pencil. And because of those constraints, many developers are seeking multifamily product types and are seeking those tax credits as a way to try to maintain profitability and try to way to make projects pencil that otherwise wouldn't. I did provide a chart that I thought would be relevant just as a reminder to the board here, that there is a difference in terms of the actual market rates and the subsidized rates, but the difference is not very high. We're talking about around $300 per unit per month. That comes out to about 20 cents per unit per month in terms of the revenue that you could get as a developer or as a landlord. There is very low vacancy rates across both the market product types as well as the subsidized unit types. It's 6.6% is very low, right? There's very little wiggle room, very little openings for people to get. But the 10.5% is also not much higher. So there's a lot of demand for these product types. There have been quite a few deliveries there, and there's sufficiently more under construction. And again, this is data from CoStar. There's a lot more in the pipeline that has not hit CoStar yet, where we are receiving requests from developers to do additional products. And so that pipeline is quite large in terms of potential and upcoming development. And what the city would like to do and what our staff proposal in terms of the overall housing strategy. Jeremy and I discussed this briefly, but just to revisit it. Again, there is a demand for income targeted homes. There is very low vacancy in those units. And so making this change would mean that it would likely that all of the LIHTC product types, the income targeted product types would get filled. There's not a concern there. Ogden does have a disproportionate share of income targeted housing. There was that 83% statistic that Jeremy shared. So Ogden City is bearing the majority of those income targeted units. And we just do not have the land available that we could actually address the regional demand that there is. And so because of that, because there is a lot of demand for it that will get filled, and because we have very little land, we need to be very strategic about how we let the city form and which projects we want to allow and which ones should go through and which ones should be supported. And so what we'd like to see and work with you on is to ensure that income targeted units are part of that overall housing mix that the city evaluates and looks at, but that we're very strategic in terms of making sure that those higher density housing types are in the downtown to maintain the character of the remaining suburbs and neighborhoods, and to give a good mix of product types, and to allow for people who are upgrading their lifestyle, who are able to experience new jobs, new wages, that they don't have to leave the community that they live in and that they love in order to find another home. And so to make sure that the property we do have throughout the community, that we have a good mix of housing products and types. And so to really focus on those key downtown and residential nodes to allow for those denser unit types to provide that type of an opportunity for a good mix as well as a really healthy, strong downtown. The example I gave, I wanted to revisit this as well. I pulled the median household earning for a median LIHTC product type, as well as for what a theoretical median household would be earning. And as you can see, there is a differential between the LIHTC, which would be about approximately $18,000 discretionary income after they've paid for that unit, versus a median household earning that would be approximately $37,000 in discretionary income. But this median is, there's a wide range, and in terms of the distribution of those incomes throughout the community, there's a lot of overlap. If you have the 140% rule, that someone who lives in a LIHTC unit, they can reach 140% of AMI and still live in the property and be totally compliant with the rules. That is well above our median that the city has right now. And so there is a difference, there is an economic difference, but there's a wide spread of distribution between those two populations. So to summarize all of the considerations that we've talked about over the last several weeks, allowing this amendment would be unlikely to harm other income targeted projects within the city. It would stabilize the Thorstensen building. It would add approximately $20,000 to $25,000 in annual property tax revenue as a result of those improvements, and it would generate a small positive impact on the local economy via those new residential households. We're estimating about $500,000 per year in economic activity, and that would be everything from them going shopping to them spending in the downtown to childcare costs, all the things that a household has to pay for. However, if you do proceed with allowing for a low-income housing tax credit product type, it has a 15-year compliance period. It has to remain income restricted for those 15 years, and it's a very high likelihood that it would remain a low-income targeted unit for a longer period than just those 15 years. It's very common that they will reapply for those credits as they need to upgrade and maintain the building, and so that's very likely going to be the case for this particular one. To summarize the staff recommendation that I provided, it's again more contractual based rather than economic based in terms of the argument here, is that due to the failure of both the parties to meet their obligations under that contract, due to Lotus stepping in to purchase that building, as well as the city's requests to change and adjust its strategy over time prior to COVID, and then because of the market rate changes and the challenging conditions, as well as there's no other current interest on the table from other parties who are expressing interest in that property type, that the board would approve this addendum to allow for those 25 units. Any questions?
Any questions for Eric? Thank you. Sounds like, okay, we have elected to accept public input on this item.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
Before we go to public input, I'd like to invite some of the Lotus representatives who are here.
Absolutely.
To come up
thank you for that
our
reminder.
questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of them is here is Ricky Becerra. He's representing this region for Lotus. And I don't know, Ricky, if you want to have anybody else join you, but I think it would be valuable to ask for your insight and perspective, and explain to us, please, why the change of your thought process to move into this direction.
Hello, my name is Christian Graff, and I am the development manager with Lotus Company. I'm also joined with Ricky Becerra, who's the associate on the project, and Craig Smith, who is also assisting us in this endeavor. Thank you for having us today. We're very grateful for your time. We're also excited to talk about this project. I guess one thing that I also want to clarify, not clarify, but add to Eric's great presentation, thank you also, Eric, for that, is that low income does not mean low quality. These are still going to be those high quality, high end urban lofts that the initial development agreement wanted to see. If anything, in this difficult market where we are all feeling the cost burden of living in America right now, every personal individual in this country feels it, and every industry feels it, especially the real estate development industry. If anything, these low income housing tax credits actually allow development to still occur at a high-end level. This is to provide high-quality living for these individuals that are regular Americans. One thing I do want to point out, on your screen there was the 30% AMI income band. This is actually set aside for 60% AMI. So it's a completely different income from what you're seeing. And that 140% rule does mean that anyone that qualifies at their 30% income, they can make up to 140% of their initial income at time of qualification and still live in the unit. That means that someone that qualifies, a family of two young individuals, a young couple, young working professionals in Ogden, that's making $70,000 a year, that qualifies. That individual can make up to 140% of that. That's well over 6 figures. That is a very great salary, and something that in market rate housing that Ogden's trying to see, that accomplishes that goal. I think one thing I definitely want to touch on, though, is the amendment actual language. It says that we are proposing to have 25 income targeted artist lofts. that conform in style, quality, and use to the goals, objectives, and strategies of the 9 Rails Creative District. That's the most exciting part for us. Ogden is a very special city in Utah. It's eclectic, it's exciting, it's a mountain city through and through, and you can see that in the art that is expressed all over the city. We love the concept of artist loss in the city. We love giving the opportunity for housing for these artists to be local and to express their work and not have to live elsewhere and do their murals or do whatever part of the art walk and other fun art festivals that happen in the city. And so that's really where we're trying to lean into that and give an opportunity for these people to live here. I'm joined with other people here that can speak to that in greater detail beyond just myself. And like I said, Ricky as well, to give some specifics of the project and also help answer some questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tristan. And thank you, Councilmember Myers. Thank you all for being here tonight. And it's a sunny, beautiful afternoon. You could be home playing with your dog or your kids, and you're here, so thank you. I think the first item I want to touch on is the fiscal and community case. A lot of this Eric already touched on, which, by the way, you guys should all be proud. You have Eric on your team. That was, I'm also somewhat of a water nerd, but also a housing nerd. And a lot of what he said is just data-driven and, more importantly, just true. So first, vacant versus occupied. Currently, the top 2 floors of the Thorstensen building are vacant, generating minimal property tax revenue, versus dramatically changing if we do fill these units up, and we would generate property taxes to help fund the parks, additional services like that. Second, historic preservation. This is an old building. The project would preserve a 100-year-old building under National Park Service standards at no additional cost to the city. Third, housing. 25 income restricted units for working artists and other workforce housing, workforce tenants, including first responders, teachers, city employees, population, local population that really anchors not only our downtown, but the general neighborhood as well. Economic activity, 30% of income is allocated to housing. Again, if I was a recent graduate 5 years ago and my wife and I knew about LIHTC, I would have loved to find something like this because, as we've all heard and are experiencing, the average American's living paycheck to paycheck. This would be awesome to have 30% of my income set aside just for my housing needs. And then I could go down the street, I could go to Costco and buy a full pantry worth of food and not have to worry about if I'm going to be able to make rent. It's just something to think about. The other item that I wanted to bring up and reiterate, and again, Eric already hit on this, but it's unlikely to harm any of the other LIHTC or income restricted units in Ogden. Stabilizes the Thorstensen building and also that neighborhood. It adds approximately $25,000 in annual property taxes versus, again, the minimal revenue that it is currently generating. Roughly $500,000 in local economic activity. As we saw, the income bands are pretty extensive, and a lot of that can be spent going downstairs to the bar, grabbing a bite to eat, grabbing a drink, so on and so forth. This is real economic activity. And then again, just the income restricted period of probably 30 years, 15 years for sure. And again, just thank you to Eric and Jeremy for their great data that they had. I know that there was concerns about new inventory, potentially taking from other LIHTC projects. Sounds like and again, the data backs that this probably won't happen. Additionally, one thing I did want to mention is the submarket, meaning just the downtown vacancy rate, is actually 9.2%. This is below the 11.1% 5-year average according to CoStar. It's a healthy market. Affordable product is actually performing at 6.6% vacancy. So again, reiterating the fact that we'll lease up well. And then again, renter burden shows that rents are up 62% since 2019. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't had a 62% increase in my wage. Again, these are real costs for real people. The median renter is at a 33% cost burden. So again, creating more housing for average Americans. I think that this project will be an incredible addition to the community. Like Christian mentioned, we're pretty passionate about Ogden and the work that you're doing here, and we'd like to contribute to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Craig Smith. Happy to be here, and thanks for the staff report. I thought that was excellent. And by the way, I claim to be the biggest water nerd here. I and my firm, Smith Harvickson, practice more water law than any other firm in the state of Utah. So yeah, everybody's becoming a water nerd these days because we have to. And I won't get off onto those stories, but just to kind of cover a couple of the legal points, this is a very simple change to the agreement with the agency. And I've also worked with a lot of redevelopment agencies and still do over the years. And so I went back and looked at the project area plan. Probably no one else has probably done that for a while. That was done back in 2015. That's the plan who guides what you're supposed to do. And at that time, there was no housing in this Thorstensen project area. And one of the purposes was to promote housing. So what you're doing is consistent with the plan and what you're supposed to be doing here for that, because it has to promote housing. The other thing is to allow a completion and of the improvements for a historic building, which you're saving, which we're not saving enough of those, in my opinion, in the state. And then finally, I think it was mentioned the workforce housing aspect of it. It would, even though it does have a affordable housing component with it, you just heard the thing. We're talking about very little difference in rent between that and market rate. Finally, the thing I'll say, what I don't think these guys will say is you can't build something you know you're going to lose money on from the very beginning. And that's why they're doing this. I mean, if they could make more money doing something else, they would. There's been a lot of things that have been looked at here, office and things, and then COVID and all those things. So, you have to be able to try to at least think you're going to make money to build something, and this is what they can do. And I think it will be a credit to Ogden. I grew up down in Carbon County, and if you ever get a chance, go by Helper and see what the artist community has done for the little town of Helper. Thank you. Any questions anybody has that either I or these guys can answer?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions that I'd like to ask. So first of all, I don't dive into the numbers like you do. So thanks to Eric and Christian and Ricky and to you, Craig. It's impressive to hear your evaluation, and it gives us a lot of hope for that type of a project. My simple question is, Eric had some really cool pictures of what some of those lofts would. Is there that much space between the floor and the ceiling in those apartments?
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone's had a chance to go in there. I'd love to tour, whoever wants to go tour, but it's amazing, and it feels like you're in a large space. It truly does give that almost New York City-esque experience of, hey, I'm in a downtown building with these large industrial windows. It's pretty amazing. So,
and then what is the floor plan, the projected floor plan for each of those spaces?
Yeah, so currently we have 25 units, 21 one beds, and 4 two beds and 2 baths. The average unit square footage is 839 square feet.
And do you project that the occupancy, because of the class and the type of project this is, you anticipate that it will that will cover your costs and your redevelopment costs and
Yeah, I really do. Again, one thing Christian touched on is the LIHTC credits. What that allows us to do is create a good quality home. We don't believe in churn and burn housing. We believe in long-lasting housing that I'm proud to build and that tenants are proud to call home.
And my last question is, this is I don't want to get into the math because I know a little bit about how you fund this to be able to develop it, but not enough. And I don't know that we have time to listen to the whole math theory of how you make this work. But my question is simple. What is the time that you have return on investment when this becomes a profitable project? How long will that be?
That's a good question, and it's a loaded answer.
That's
the reality is this isn't a home run project for us as a developer. It's more something that we as Lotus Company are, as a brand, we're an affordable housing developer, and we're trying to build more housing for the average American that they can call dignified housing, but also that is affordable.
So I have a friend who has built a project similar to this in Ogden on Wall Avenue. I won't go into any more detail, but he projects that it's a 30-year time frame before that return on investment comes back.
Yeah, he's probably not wrong. Yep.
Okay, I don't have any more questions, Chair.
Okay, anybody else have questions?
I do. So first I want to acknowledge it. Lotus has done a lot of good work in Ogden. I was at the ribbon cutting for the Riverbend project. I think it's been a couple of years. And Councilmember Ritchie and I toured one of the buildings, and it was very nicely done. Quality finishes throughout and nice amenities throughout the whole thing. But I remember, and I think it's your CEO was there and spoke that day and said, all of this is low-income housing. How many units have you built from Walmart and 21st around to 18th Street where you're currently building? How many units will that include?
It's about 500 units.
About 500 units. Of those 500 units, are any of them market rate?
Our current thesis is 100% affordable.
Okay. Are there?
And there are some market rate in some of those communities. And one thing I will answer as well, this is a good question. Our current underwritten rents in our pro forma for 1 bed is $1,300, 2 beds is $1,500. The spread's pretty negligible.
Right, and Eric pointed that out.
Yep.
Have you built any market rate stuff in Ogden at all?
Yes.
Can you point to a development that's market rate? I'm sorry, one more. Current?
Current townhomes.
Okay, yep, that's right. Thank you very much, over on Park. So I picked up an article that was Build Salt Lake City.
Sure.
And your development director, Stephen Blomquist, was quoted. Stephen said, given the amount of development, ready land, and an established downtown, Ogden, the city is an attractive place for multifamily developers. Blomquist went on to say, those factors created a really unique opportunity for developers to go in who want to do multifamily, whether it's market rate or affordable, because the city has the density that's needed. They have the services that a lot of affordable and market rate tenants rely on, and they provide access to a downtown environment. In light of all of the affordable housing projects in Ogden, above and beyond what Lotus has done, why not market rate housing in this beautiful building? It's a historic building that overlooks a ballpark. It's walkable to our downtown. It's walkable to mass transportation to Salt Lake City. It just deserves more in my mind, and I don't understand why this isn't market rate for you all.
Yeah, if we, that's a great question, by the way. And Stephen said some great things in that article. I think if we were to do market rate, and I've done market rate throughout my career, we wouldn't be able to have the finishes we have currently. Like we wouldn't be able to meet our debt service. In other words, we wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage. The construction costs would just not be able to pencil for the rents we'd be able to achieve, whereas the LifeTech structure actually enables us as a developer to provide dignified housing with good finishes that you've seen at other projects.
I kind of stand on maybe Ogden has enough dignified housing that's affordable for individuals. And there was a point made around a third of one's income going to housing, leaving the remainder as, I don't know if it was disposable or discretionary. I think it was discretionary.
Discretionary.
But, okay. So if it is a couple in a market rate development, and it's not uncommon for a couple to make $210,000 a year, and this makes my math simple, a third of that is $70,000 for housing. That leaves $140,000 in their pockets as discretionary. If, on the other hand, this is a couple that falls into the spectrum of qualifying for LIHTC, even at 140%, let's say it's a couple that makes $90,000 and a third is $30,000, in their pockets is $60,000. 60 is less than 140. I'm worried about our downtown area not having enough people in it with disposable income in their pocket at the end of the month to support the amenities that we want to see supported in our downtown area.
Sure.
Councilmember Graff, thank you for all your comments. I think one thing that affordable housing does do is exactly address your concern. What we are all feeling, like I started off my comments and saying, is the cost burden of living in America right now. And affordable housing removes that burden for the average American so that they can live a regular life more easily and spend those dollars where you want them to be spent. So truly, you're wanting to see, let's say, the $90,000 a year couple that you mentioned, but a $70,000 a year couple qualifies for this housing. By removing that housing burden that they would have to spend $2,000, et cetera, dollars in a market rate apartment with their $90,000 salary, and here they get to get it for $1,500, like Eric showed us. Removing that burden gives them that $500 to spend elsewhere to then make up the difference, and now their salary is no longer 70; it's in the 80,000s. So what you're looking for is actually accomplished out of affordable housing. It removes that burden to then let these people spend their dollars where you want them to see them spend.
If a plumber's apprentice qualified, would you let them live there?
Of course. Yeah, this low-income housing is first come, first serve.
Okay,
And
so
I
the
think
idea of artist lofts, that's nice and it creates a very nice image, but there's nothing you can do to ensure that the entire property is occupied by an artist community.
Except we can definitely market towards artists, and we actually have people here with us today to explain how that's possible. I actually would like to welcome them if that's possible. Lori, can you come speak? We have the same concern, and we also want to make sure that we market towards the artists that will fill these artist lofts. And although anyone can apply, as long as we market to the people that we would like to see fill these spaces, they can, well, qualify for them first. So, Lori, if you could please, and then Crystal as well.
Good evening, council members. I've been working with Lotus for several years on meeting our goals and strategies of the Master Plan for Arts and Culture, as well as the Nine Rails Creative District Master Plan, both of which have goals and strategies that direct us to create an environment where our local creatives can live and work and thrive, which helps us retain their talent and give their gifts back to the Ogden community. They have, over the years, we've talked about several different projects, what we could bring on and whatnot, and housing has been the biggest one for us to get to, like having someone that's willing to provide housing that, they would be willing to let artists apply to live there really just hasn't happened yet. And so I would love to see this, and it's not like it is first come, first serve, but I have a large database of local creatives that we can share the opportunity to just say this is coming online, be aware if you're looking for housing, this, there's 25 units here, and so that they are informed and they're able to apply to live in this building. And I think, we would all benefit from keeping our creatives here in Ogden, allowing them to be, and creatives often don't have large salaries, like even, we're all struggling to buy groceries and pay for gas and pay for everything. It's, even if you make a good salary, it's gotten a little tight. So especially in the creative sector, it's tight for them. And so if we can do anything we can do to help retain them here in Ogden, I think is a good vote for Ogden. So that's it. I can help share that out. We have a lot of creatives, that I have been in contact with for years. So that is, my step in this project. But they've been great to work with in helping me try to find and meet these goals and strategies of the master plan and the Nine Rails Creative District Master Plan.
Thanks, Lori.
Hello, good evening. My name is Crystal Fleming. I am a Senior Regional Manager for Evergreen Management Group. We are the management group that manages the Lotus properties here in Ogden. So I can speak to the market rate, conventional market rate properties that we oversee, and also the LIHTC properties that we see. I'm grateful that you joined us for our Lotus Riverwalk open house. It was definitely an event that we were very excited to put on. I hope that you took note of the speaker, one of our residents who was experiencing domestic violence. She found refuge at Lotus Riverwalk. That is the purpose of these affordable LIHTC communities, is to provide quality, affordable housing for those with the most need that are the working class here in Ogden. As a property management company who actively manages both affordable and conventional market rate properties or communities throughout the Ogden area, we've seen a clear trend in today's housing market. Our affordable housing communities are consistently outperforming our conventional market rate properties in both occupancy and long-term stability. Demand for quality, affordable housing continues to significantly exceed what is available today. Because of this strong demand, we believe Crown Apartments, as an affordable artist-focused community, will maintain consistently high occupancy. High occupancy translates into stable operations, strong property values, and also reliable property tax revenue for the city. We believe the project has potential to generate tax revenue comparable to or even exceeding what would be expected from a market rate development, simply because it is expected to remain fully occupied over the long term. This is not a new concept for us. We are very familiar. We currently manage art space in downtown Salt Lake City, where residential and commercial spaces are intentionally marketed to artists. We have firsthand experience creating and managing communities that support the creative economy while remaining financially successful. For Crown Apartments, we would partner closely with Lori and the Ogden City Arts Division to market available apartment homes directly to artists. We could also encourage artists within the community to share these opportunities with others in the local arts community, helping ensure the property remains a vibrant hub for Ogden's creative talent. Our goal is simple. Let's provide quality, affordable housing that allows local artists to live where they create. By reducing housing costs, artists can invest more of their time and energy into their work, strengthening Ogden's arts and culture scene while also contributing to the continued vitality of the downtown area. We believe Crown Apartments represents an investment not only in affordable housing, but in people who help define Ogden's unique identity and make our community a more vibrant place to live, work, and also visit. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Crystal, for your words. At the end of the day, we are proud to be an affordable housing developer, and we are more proud to be an affordable housing developer here in Ogden. This is a special city, it's a creative city, and we hope to continue to add to that creativity with these very meticulously designed, high quality, urban downtown lofts for the everyday average Ogden resident. If there's any other questions, we are more than happy to continue to answer, but I also don't want to be too redundant, so my overall speech is done, but I appreciate everyone that's assisted us in this process.
I do have one question, Chair.
Yeah,
have you applied for the LIHTC?
We have, and we were awarded, yes.
Thank
We
you.
just were awarded our third extension, or our fourth extension, I mean, and this is part of that process to continue and close and begin construction this year.
Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that I have spoken to the owners of UTOG, and they're excited that this project is going to be hopefully moving forward. They're supportive of it. And I think I've had a lot of my questions and concerns answered. I just hope that I could become friends with a tenant so that I can grab a beer from the beer store and watch a baseball game from the living room. I think that'd be pretty cool. So.
Hey, Chair, I had a question. So one of the things I asked in the work session was just about some of the recent state legislature changes or actions regarding condos, about condos, right? And I think the answer was that, well, it's kind of like this wait and see approach where it's new enough. Nobody's really dipping their toe in the water yet on that. Just curious if you were to envision this as a condo development rather than LIHTC, how would that look, and is that something that could potentially pencil.
Yeah, let me tell you, I was the first person, probably not, I can't claim to be the first, but I was among the first people that definitely dove straight into that legislation because I was excited about the idea of owner-occupied affordable housing. I think we all want to see that as well. There are some restrictions though, and it's very much a wait and see approach. Something Ricky touched on. The reason we're not doing market rate here is because it simply is not financially feasible. We would love to build market rate here. That's why in 2015 we said we would. We tried in 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, et cetera, up until now. It just is not financially feasible. It is too expensive of a building to retrofit to produce market rate apartments that will be within the cost of market rate apartments in Ogden. Or just for, it's not fair to charge, say, $4,000, for someone to live in downtown Ogden. That's just not feasible. To the condo comment, same thing. That legislation requires that you sell these owner-occupied affordable housing units underneath a certain price. It's not financially feasible. We wouldn't be able to get the construction dollars down to qualify for those programs. However, wait and see. Let's see if the state changes some of those rules. Let's see if they apply more funding for that. Let's see if they create income bands across owner-occupied. I don't know. Let's be creative. Let's find solutions, but it doesn't exist right now.
Okay. Anything else?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
One unrelated question. The apartments that are at 5 Points in Ogden on 2nd Street and Washington Boulevard, are they LIHTC apartments also?
Those aren't ours, so I can't confidently speak to it.
Aren't
What
those
address
Lotus
again?
Lotus apartments?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the name. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, there's apartments that are on 2nd Street and Washington Boulevard. We
Where
call
the
it
old-
5 Points.
Where the old Wingsguard supermarket was.
Oh my goodness, the name. I'm so sorry. My brain wasn't calculating. Yes, those are LIHTC units. Yes, and those are also at 60%. Yeah, sorry. 2nd and Washington, north end of the city. My brain wasn't working, but yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the developer or the petitioner? Okay, thank you. We have elected to accept public input on this item. If you'd like to address this item, come forward and give us your name. Limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Teresa Bramwell. I have so many issues with this, I don't even know where to start. The first one is, this was part of a complete plan, right? So Lotus was given a full scope of a project, which included some low-income LIHTC projects and some market rate projects. So I know that the Lotus property down on Wall, where the Walmart is all low income. It's all apartments. Those properties were homes that were replaced to build all of that. So all of those Ogden citizens were displaced out of those homes in order for that Walmart and all of that those low-income apartments to be built. So Lotus was the beneficiary of all that. They got rich building low-income apartments. They got rich building the next low-income apartments. They got rich building the next low-income apartments. Most of them are right downtown. So as part of the whole deal, they were supposed to build some regular price properties. I would love to see these be condominiums that people can purchase and own. This property reminds me of the Broadway Lofts in Salt Lake on 3rd South by the Rose Wagoner. They are so bougie and so expensive, you can't even buy one. Those windows in this building are exactly like the Broadway Lofts. Those sell like hotcakes. The second they come on the market, they're sold. I don't know why these people think that people wouldn't buy them. I'm an artist. I'm a card-carrying member of Actors Equity Association. I would never live in a low-income apartment, but I would purchase a condominium with really awesome giant windows that overlooks the ballpark. I would buy that in a hot New York minute to live there and own it and gain the equity. But I'm not going to live and I'm not going to buy and I'm going to gain no equity and I will have no opportunity to live in a low-income apartment. So where is the place that the people that can buy something and want to invest in this community and pay retail price that have functional jobs and are functional people, where are they supposed to live if our whole entire downtown is filled with low-income apartments that Lotus got rich building? It makes absolutely no sense. They need to be held to the other end of their contract, which is to build condominiums that can be purchased by regular people that have jobs, because there aren't any in Ogden. Ogden is becoming a crime-infested ghetto because there are too many low-income apartments and too many friends of those people that can't even afford those low-income apartments, that are homeless, that are making me a domestic violence victim. And I own my home. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Annie Dunaway once again. I want to say thank you guys for considering low-income housing. Anybody who knows me knows that I will fight for that every day. And also thank you for Lotus investing in our community in that way. But with this particular development, I have to push back. There's a few reasons why. During Eric's presentation, what I heard was 10 years of not upholding an agreement, over and over making adjustments to an agreement that they continue to fail to uphold. Number one. Number two, when they did finally get a tenant for, meaning UTOG, for that building, they required UTOG to carry much of the renovation requirements and costs. And so this building doesn't seem to be something that is working out as we continue to invest as a community in this deal with Lotus. And so for me, what I would like to say is, much like Teresa said, if they have yet, after 10 years, managed to make a improvement for our community out of this building, perhaps what they need to be doing is selling these units to people who will take ownership and will make an investment in the building. I am a proponent for owner-occupied. Above and beyond any other thing, that's how you create long-term intergenerational wealth, which by and large our artist community fails to build or have the opportunity to build. That intergenerational wealth. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Humphreys, I'm an Ogden resident. A lot has been said this evening about the slight increase in property values by having a fully developed building, but anyone who runs a city knows that all of your money comes from sales tax dollars, not property tax dollars. And sales tax dollars don't come from people who have $40,000 or $50,000 a year in a two-person household and have to spend more than half of their money on rent. It isn't a third. The average they were discussing in the information provided by Ogden City's own presentation was an average of $28,000 a year versus $54,000 a year. Not $70,000, not $110,000, 30 versus 55. And at $30,000 or $40,000, they can't afford to get the beer downstairs at UTOG. That's the reality. There are hundreds and hundreds of low-income units in the downtown community. I'm not saying we should be anti-low-income housing. We definitely shouldn't be. But we have to, any community can handle one or two families that struggles. No community can handle hundreds of families who struggle. We are not setting up downtown Ogden for success. This is a historic building. It is going to be extremely expensive to upgrade and renovate and make sure it works. It will also be equally expensive to maintain that building long-term. Either the developer or an owner of that building has to generate enough money from rents to be able to cover that cost, or they're constantly getting bailed out by the government to pay for those costs, or they have to be sold to people who have enough disposable income that they can afford the HOA fee required to afford the maintenance of such a historic building. It is more important that the building be taken care of and that we look more closely at greater economic diversity in the downtown core than just a single economic line. It doesn't generate anywhere near enough sales tax dollars to make it worth it to Ogden City. It might be good for the developer, but this has to be a good deal for both Ogden City and for the developer, and my taxes have to be more respected than that. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thor Dorosh, Ogden resident. I think that the person who spoke previously who has the most accurate concerns is James Humphreys. It's the financial solvency of downtown, I think, is the best justification for making this a like a condominium or something that targets market rate. However, I, as someone who is young and lives in Ogden and wants other young people to live in Ogden, people who don't make $20,000 a year as a couple, but make $10,000, $20,000, nothing. Among the people who I know who are young, 3 of them have lost their job in the last 2 weeks. The economy is not in a place where if you say no to people being low income in your community, they'll just not be able to live in your community. The only people who can afford wealth right now are the elderly, the old, and people who've already bought into the generational wealth of ownership. That is not young people. The same age of people who bought houses and bought into that generational wealth has risen at the same rate as the year of people bought in. 20 years ago, the average was 30, and now it's 50. If you didn't buy in when you were 20 years ago, you're not able to buy in now. And that's just the fact of it. So if you want young people to be in Ogden, you have to build housing that can have young people move in. I think that the concept of an artist loft, especially the proposal here, is kind of shady. It's not actually going to be artists. It's some way of saying that it's going to be market rate or people who are young and engaged in the community in some sort of artsy way, which I hope they target artists. But I think that an apprentice or someone who has not been able to buy into that generational wealth should be just as welcome into Ogden outside of some specific arts focus. Because although we will definitely make our cultural capital through arts, an economy isn't built on arts. It's something that draws tourists in or other businesses or provides some sort of like concept of wealth. But please don't lock out my generation from being able to live in Ogden. Please don't. I want to be able to move out and live in Ogden. That's just the fact of it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Laura Lewis, Ogden residents. Thor, I don't know the old people that you know, but most seniors do not have that unlimited income. And if you know some way to get it, let me know, because I could use it. So anyway, I think we have enough low income or assisted income or housing in Ogden. I think it's time that we start building more market rate. Do we know if there are people out there looking for that type of housing and can't find it? I read on social media, there was a gentleman that made the comment that his daughter was just getting married, and the 2 of them with the combined income cannot afford any, they can't get into any of the new homes or the new housing because it's all the LIHTC type housing, assisted. They make too much money. If they want to have a new apartment, it's just not there. So I think we need to start balancing out the housing a little bit more. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Hi, Travis Pate, lifelong resident. I think as I watched the work session with some of these other things, it was brought up, where are the empty nesters going? And yet an empty nester now wouldn't qualify for this unit if it goes to LIHTC. And it's off the market for 15 years, and if they get a renewal, it's off the market for another 15 years, even as the downtown grows and blooms and blossoms, because we've seen the ebb and flow of the of the market of downtown. We had an 880,000 square foot mall that cost $6 million to remove, cost $20 million to originally put it in. But the return on that investment is $186 million into that 20 acres. Tremendous growth, tremendous return on our investment. And we have this property that we can said, okay, how many of your 500 units are market rate? 0. And yet when Imagine Jefferson came in with Portland and their big product, and they qualified for the Olin Walker Housing Trust Fund, they said 80% market and 20% fair low mod. And everybody's like, yes, fantastic, because Mr. Myers just outgrew a suit, but I don't have a suit, and I'm in the 20%. Hey, here's something for your job interview. Here's this, and we're lifting the community when that project happened. And yet, someone that says, here's all this free property indirectly that you can build, and we just ask that you return part of that investment, part of the trust that we've given you as a citizenry by doing this at a market rate space. Oh, but we'll just drag our heels. We'll invest and reinvest. And if we asked Evergreen Management how much of that comes from their rent of the individuals is from charitable organizations and churches and others, because that individual, as someone else said, maybe just lost their job, but the lease agreement is for a full year. Their lease agreement, 15 years that we're taking this off the market. So I think it's a really poor decision that we could simply say, how much of our property have you invested in? And what is your profit margin that you've now made? And you've allowed this to lie idle. We had a property over here that Ogden City was ready to move into out of this building. And they said, oh, Martin Thiokol Corporation. Hey, Thiokol, Governor Banger says, you have to go to Ogden. They came to Ogden, they took over. But then the industry changes. Oh, fortunately, God bless MarketStar. Markets change, but when we're saying we're going to do a 30-year commitment and not allow the market to come in and say, hey, there's a beautiful ballpark aspect. Tommy Lasorda that played here, hey, guess what? One of these units is vacation rental by owner. You can have this as a beautiful loft, but does LIHTC allow vacation rental by owner? Probably not. So no, this is a no deal for Ogden for what we've given to Lotus. Their minimal investment that they have to give back, shameful.
Thanks, Travis. Is there anyone else? Got one online? Oh, here we come. Go ahead.
Sarah Fisher, Ogden resident. Felt like I should say something different than what I usually say up here. So I wanted to start just broadening the perspective on low-income people. I've spent a lot of my life being one of those low-income people, and I do have a professional, degree as well. But sometimes the low-income people, they're looking for housing close to work. They're the baristas that make your coffee. And they're the artists as well. They're the person serving you the food downtown. And those are the people that make Ogden cool. And we need more of those places. Like half of Washington's boarded up. We need those people to work and live downtown. So when I think of low-income people, I think of my sister who's a coffee shop manager downtown. I think of my husband who's a ski patroller up on the mountain. And a lot of our friends in those circles, my professional career is as a nurse. I'm just barely out of that low-income bracket. So I just want to say sometimes the low-income people can contribute a lot to the community. I spent my 20s living in Austin, Texas, so a pretty cool city with a really great, thriving restaurant scene. It's blown up. And I was low-income there. We worked in the restaurant industry, and that would have been the time in my life that I had the most disposable income to spend downtown in the city. And we did. So all that to say, y'all got a big thing to consider, but just kind of want to broaden the perspective that some of those low-income people are really feeding the culture in Ogden. And I think that's super important. It looks like a cool building, and I know a lot of people that would be interested in living there that really feed into the Ogden community and make the place unique. So thanks for considering it all.
Thanks, Sarah. Have a hand online, Heath Sato.
Hi there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Just to get this out of the way, I have to say I take offense at someone walking into our house and saying, who doesn't even live here and saying that our community is a crime-infested ghetto is offensive. It's not. Just had to get that out of the way. And I agree with what the previous speaker just said. We keep speaking of people that need slightly more affordable housing as some sort of worthless parasite on our city, and I see them as the heartbeat of our city. I would bet that nearly every one of you up there that own a home is paying far less of a mortgage than what the quote unquote low income people are paying for their apartments in Ogden right now. And I don't consider you guys to be, you know, worthless parasites because you don't pay enough in rent or a mortgage. So regarding balancing out the housing, Ogden took on a commitment bond of what, $4 million a year for the next 40 years or something like that to help a developer build some of the most expensive apartments in Ogden. So with Wonder Block adding a lot of expensive apartments in the downtown area, I think we're going to absolutely need some slightly less expensive housing for the additional workforce needed downtown. And by having them living downtown, they will spend their money there. There'll be less traffic of workers driving in and out of town. I just see this as a win-win all the way around. You know, I don't know what, I know Lotus has gotten a lot out of the city over the years, but they've invested a lot too. So I'm not even going to speak to the developer one way or the other, but I think that we need to stop looking at lower income. We're talking people with like teacher salaries or, you know, bartenders. They are our community, and I don't see this need to gentrify them out of Ogden. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath. Let's see, we've got Cole Eisenhower online.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I coming through right now?
Yep, we hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm actually on a job right now. I am a local artist in Ogden, and I just wanted to jump in. It's Cole Eisenhower.
Okay, thank you.
Some of you may have seen my work around town. I have a big mural on 25th Street. I have some up 24th Street, and I have one at the Echo Center. And I just want to chime in as an artist that's been sort of pushed out of Ogden with not many opportunities. And I'm currently residing in Roy. And as an artist, I represent Ogden. And I feel like this would, for other people I know in the community, be a great opportunity for some of us to actually be able to reside in Ogden, the city that we represent, and, you know, continue to feed to the culture. You know, I'm a working artist. I travel around. I'm currently in Salt Lake working on a mural as I speak. It's not easy, and you never know where your money's coming from. I think with low-income housing, you know, it'd be a significant bonus for people like myself who never know what the next year is going to bring, as well as having, you know, a space to continue to create that won't completely take all my funds. As an artist, you know, you want to live a life too, just like anybody else, you know, working in an office building, but it's a totally different beast. And I personally know through experience with my murals and Lotus actually working with me on a project, you know, they give back, they care about the arts. And I see this as, you know, a bonus for people in my community and people like myself that, like I said, don't know what the next year is going to bring, never know, you know, what's around the corner, and feeling secure in your living environment and being able to have a place, you know, in the city that we, you know, create in and, you know, represent again, I think, you know, would be pretty important. And I think there are people in the community that I know that would definitely be interested in something like this as sort of an artist, you know, housing project. It'd be really cool. There's similar ones in Salt Lake where a lot of creatives live, and where Ogden is such a, you know, contributor to the arts and, you know, putting artists out there. I think this would be great for the community. And again, like people like myself. So that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council on this item? Okay. Discussion and a motion.
Hearing no other discussion, Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed resolution 2026-6, approving the First Amendment to the Land Transfer and Development Agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember, or Board Member Myers, a second by Board Member Lundell to adopt ordinance 2026-6. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Lundell.
Yes.
Board Member Myers.
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie.
No.
Board Member Washington.
Aye.
Board Member Lopez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Graff.
No.
Chair Heyer.
No. That passes. Good luck with your project. We traditionally give the no votes a minute to explain their, if they're no vote, if they wish to. Or you want to
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, no, I do hope the project works out for what, the positive economic benefits that have been addressed. The comments about it, almost, there's a feeling that if this didn't happen, there would be no place for somebody with low income to live in Ogden. I just don't feel like that's the case. I feel like we have a lot of opportunities and our downtown's special, and I just felt like, if we couldn't get this through now, that maybe there's another opportunity later on for home ownership, for a higher end type development. Maybe somebody else might be willing to take it on, and Lotus could potentially sell the project. Those are all things that were kind of swirling in my mind. I just feel like we have a lot of that in our community, and was hoping to see something a little different in this case.
Yeah, and for me, thank you for the opportunity. This isn't about discriminating against those with a lower income, nor is it about gentrifying anybody out of the community. This, for me, is about balance. This is about providing an opportunity for those that would like to stay in Ogden and leave a larger home to find a place. We don't offer that in Ogden, but I know people, like the gentleman online said, that would love to live in this location, and we've watched $500,000, $600,000 homes that the city has built sell as quickly as they're finished. I would love the opportunity to downsize. Well, I know people that would have $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 to purchase a condominium to live in a beautiful unit overlooking the ballpark and adjacent to our downtown. This is about income balance in our community. I'm very aware of the importance of having those that live and work in the service industry in our community be able to reside in our community. That is the lifeblood of a community, and we've watched other cities become too expensive for those folks to live in it, and it hollows the community out. So I'm not about moving people out of Ogden. I'm about bringing balance of income and living opportunity for those that have and those that need affordable housing.
Thank you. It's the ratio for me as well. Absolutely. We took a tour a couple weeks ago of the Wonder Block, which we have invested a lot into because of the economic generation and catalyzation that it is going to provide. This is 2 blocks away, and I believe this is going to benefit from that, given a minute to let it work. We do have to have some people owning some property in Ogden. Everything can't be for rent. It just can't sustain itself that way. We've got to start building things that people can buy. And when I talk to realtors, that's what they say. Can't you guys zone something that we can sell? There's just way more rentals than is healthy for a community our size. I just couldn't get past that. So, matter of fact, it's going to be hard for me going forward to vote for these subsidized rentals in lieu of something that somebody could buy. So anyway, that's that. So next item is our the Color Sky Homes Participation and Incentive Agreement. We have Eric Gibson again presenting.
Thank you. Glad to be up here again. So this is the ultimate juxtaposition. We were talking about income-targeted rental units, and now we're talking about for ownership townhomes in the downtown. So the proposal that you are going to be deciding on today is to enter into a participation incentive agreement with Color Sky Homes for the development of 10 entry-level townhomes located in the Adams Community Reinvestment Area. Here's a quick map of that parcel and where that's located. It's just off 26th Street between Porter and Adams Avenue. In terms of what the actual project is, they're looking at doing 10 market rate townhomes, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2.5 bath, approximately 1048 to 1,500 square feet. They're priced to be entry level, given the current housing market, looking at between $310,000 and $440,000. I put the current floor plan of those units. You'll see that they're 3 stories. The garage is in the front with the entryway in the front as well. So there'll be 3-story tall townhomes. The Adams CRA budget was increased in May of 2025. And so there is sufficient budget to allow for participation for this particular request. Here's the breakdown of those units. So it would be approximately $3.5 million in total sales value between all of those units. It is a pretty narrow strip, so you can kind of see that there's going to be a road and then entryways into each of those units there. Here's another quick view of what those are proposed to look like. They are within that Creative Rails District, the 9 Creative Rails District, and so they do have to meet some of those requirements, and they are going to be compliant with that zoning ordinance and requirement there. Based on the questions that I received during the work session, I did go out and walk the site and take some photos here. There was a question regarding the Butler Way stairs. So I did want to confirm that these are the stairs and that they exist on this particular property. So this is coming off of Adams and they go up into that private parcel. And so those do exist. I did speak with the developer who's also here today and can speak a little bit more to this particular question, but those stairs will be removed as part of the development. I did a look and verify that these are not on the historic registry, and they currently lead to that private property. So it's not a public right or public access point to get in unless you're kind of crossing across that property onto Porter. In terms of that the 9 Rails Creative District Master Plan, there was an anticipation that there would be a reconstruction of the Butler Way stairs that connected Porter to 26th. And so there is that little circle with the colored stairs that you can see kind of on the bottom of this map here. But you'll see that there's 2 lines that go out from it. One of the ones, the one kind of mid-block that is horizontal, that is the property in question. And then there's another line that goes to the south end of the block that actually connects Porter all the way down to 26th. And that's what this looks like right here. So this is the view from 26th looking up the hill. And all of this is city-owned property. And so in terms of where that staircase could be reconstructed, you have those 2 alternatives. And it was really anticipating that this connection, I think, is the more important one that the city was trying to plan for and was trying to look at in terms of that plan. Into the details for the participation amount, the RDA staff did review the project and worked with the developer to understand what their costs were, what their gap was. The total gap was quite large. It was $640,000, but we worked with them and said that we only provide up to the amount that can be created by the project. It was approximately $290K less the admin and housing fund fees that we have as part of 17C. And so that total incentive amount would be $290,000. We also requested, as part of the city's and administration's efforts to promote home ownership, that if this developer participated, that there would be an owner-occupant restriction for 3 years, that these units had to be sold to owner-occupants and they had to remain owner-occupied for a duration of at least 3 years. I did request some more information in terms of what the developer gap was, as well as a potential public interest. And in speaking with the developer, there are some challenges that are more specific to the site. The first is the topography. There is quite a change there in elevation, and so they would have to redo that retaining wall. There were some fire issues that were brought up when they met with the concept review team. Because of the access points, the interior 5 units actually need to have a sprinkler system in order for it to be fire compliant. And then in terms of the utilities, I was told that engineering had requested 8-inch water mains to feed the project, and that they would actually need to tap into utilities from 2 different sides, from Porter and from Adams, in order to feed the project appropriately. And then the final requirement actually comes from the Nine Rails Creative District, which requires that you have that brick facade, that you maintain the cultural and the historic appearance, and it is in conformity with that historic area. And there's also a public art requirement. And the builder did confirm that there's going to be murals on either side of the project. So that retaining wall that would be built, replacing the staircase, would have a public art installation right there, as well as one on the east side of the project. In terms of the alignment with the Adams CRA, the city had requested as part of that project plan to have attainable single-family and multifamily dwelling units, as well as to have attached single-family units. So this is very much in line with what the city was looking for and anticipating, trying to redevelop parcels, trying to get infill within this part of the community, and to promote home ownership. It is also going to be providing for-sale residential units in a currently vacant parcel. It will promote that infill development of a small property in a neighborhood that has needed reinvestment and would benefit from that reinvestment. And it also supports an Ogden resident developer who lives and has additional properties in that area, who can continue to develop other parcels immediately adjacent to this one within that same district area. So any questions on what I just presented?
Any questions for Eric?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have the petitioner, Mike Vels. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Mike Vels. My wife, Jen, sits back over there. We're the owners of the site and the developers of this. We are very excited to bring this to Ogden and allow a for-sale product to be built in the downtown area. It's taken a while to get here. I own this for 5 years now and went through several different iterations and costs, and realized in the end that I think a for-sale product is what is needed right now. And I'm in favor of all types of housing, rental and for owner-occupant owned, and for all types of income levels. And so I think we're going to fall right in the middle with this one. And so, again, these will be market rate and ranging between $310,000 up to $440,000 is what we're estimating at the moment. Who knows? No one has a magic crystal ball to see what's going to happen in a year from now. But we're hoping we can turn a profit. But we very well could eat our shirt on this one, depending on how costs come out and how sale prices come. And so Eric mentioned some of the gap items that we are implementing that cost more than typical other developers have to spend money on. Number one is the art requirement. Unfortunately, you have old plans here, and we have new updated plans, and it does not show the art display that will be on the Adams side, which is beautiful. And it's not a mural. It is a piece that will be on the building. designed by our very own Ogden City Cameron Lewis, who is the architect of this project as well. And so I can send those to everybody, and the planning department has them, by the way, and so you could ask them too. But we're also installing a piece on the Porter side, what you see right here. And it may be a mural with a sculpture piece, but we're not sure yet on that one. And so that is one a big gap factor that we have to spend more money on that other developers do not. Number two is, yes, we have to do provide sprinklered units on the 5 interior units. That was a fire department request. The previous fire chief I've had discussions with him, and he agreed that there wouldn't be any extraordinary needs or requirements for this project. But in the meantime, we got a new fire chief and new staff there, and they see that this would be required. So we're implementing, or we're installing that as well at a pretty significant cost. And the third one is that as part of the deed that we will, or part of the sale agreement, that we will require the buyers to live in the units for at least 3 years, and they cannot lease or rent them. So those are the gap factors that we're coming across, and that's why we are asking for this TIF amount to help us cover that. Again, we're really excited. We see a need for a for-sale product in the downtown area. I have an office half a block away from this. I'm very invested in this area. Jen and I live in the city. We're residents. And we have other projects coming down the line too that are very similar in nature. So any questions that I can answer?
I bet you you're going to get some questions about these stairs. Can you talk
Sure.
about that?
I will be a home will be there in place of stairs that lead to private property. And so that is my biggest argument for why those stairs will come out, is I'm putting a home there and for a family to enjoy and live in. And so I'll take those materials and use it elsewhere because I love the sandstone product, and I have it in my office building around the corner, and I will take those and use them there. So unfortunately, these stairs just lead to my property, and right now, the only people that use it are just people who walk through and leave some trash, and that's all they're being used for.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you help me understand? I think I heard Mr. Gibson say that when you came, there was a $600,000 gap, and you were looking for some support, and through some work, it's now 290. What changed?
Features. We were hoping to sell these for a little bit more, and so mainly interior features, and is what it comes down to. And so, we're doing the best we can to provide a really nice product, but we, are barely above a starter home kind of product here. And that would be the feature that we would have to give up is, how is the interior going to be? So,
okay.
Yeah, and create other creative measures that our contractor can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
I'll just make a quick comment. It's just about the staircases. I sent an email out to council at the end of the work session today. That's just based off, that just has some research from an associate professor of special collections from the library up at Weber State, because I lead with curiosity, and I just want to make sure that I was doing my due diligence as well. And council, as you have opportunity to look through it and for your information as well. Both staircases were created in the city in 1917 as part of civic improvements. It was actually both staircases closer to the south side, where it connects from Porter down to 26, there was a park there.
Mhm.
And so City Council called to vacate the land in 1965, and it passed. And so that's where we get the 2 staircases from, just building on the history. And then also the location of your property is Florence Crittenton's home, and it was Ogden's home for unwed mothers. So it would be interesting if there was some type of plaque that you would consider later on just with your property to identify the history of that specific parcel of land in Ogden.
I would love to.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
We have elected to receive public input on this item. If you'd like to address the council or the board on this item, please come to the microphone.
Good evening, Teresa Bramwell. Well, I thought the last project was an absolute nightmare. I love this project. I think it's great. I think there's many things that are good about it. We have a local developer, local architect, from what I understand. It will be homes for sale, so we'll have people invested in our community. The only thing I have a question about is why it seems to me that this developer is taking on a lot of risk. Going into kind of a recession. I feel like we're moving into a real estate recession right now, and interest rates are very high, and they haven't come down for a couple of years, and they're not likely to come down. So I wonder why we're putting this additional requirement on the developer to force a owner-occupant to live there for 3 years. That seems like something that's would be very difficult to enforce. Who's going to enforce that? The police? Do you call the police when somebody buys a condo and moves into it for 6 months and then they lose their job and they have to sell it or rent it, in order to make the payments? It just doesn't seem reasonable on either the developer who's going out on a limb and who is a local guy, as opposed to the giant corporation that was the last developer who has gotten rich building exclusively low income that's subsidized on the front end and subsidized on the back end by the government. I think we should allow our local developers a little more leeway to, I just think the 3-year thing is not something that can be enforced, and I think it is a hardship that doesn't need to exist. I like everything else about it, and I love that he's willing to put a marker on the building that tells the history of the property. And I love this project. Thank you for building things that can be sold to homeowners.
Thanks, Teresa. Anyone else?
Hi, Travis Pate. More than just a water nerd, I am a Ogden history nerd. And it can flow perfectly. Adams Avenue was called Spring Street. There's plenty of water. There's plenty of other aspects that I know that he's, as a potential developer, that you'd have to do the geological aspects. It's called the Central Bench Historic District. That's the Central Bench. That's the shoreline. And we're telling a developer, you can come in and excavate it and just get rid of it. There's no protection for that actual Bonneville shoreline Central Bench. I proposed years ago and over the last multiple years, but I tried to get a light bulb changed on my street. That took 7 years. So I can't imagine why trying to preserve the aspects of the Central Bench National Historic District with the proper infill. The Adams Avenue CRA, so if you don't vote no today, please continue this, because there are so many caveats of infill development and that are mentioned in the entire Adams Avenue CRA. I have a packet for each one of you, and that much development on an inner parcel of an inner block with only access from Adams Avenue, and then tear out a staircase so that pedestrian fire egress can't happen? There's a fire at my hill, and the only way I have to go is back towards the rest of the fire. I can't go down a historic staircase that was built by John McGuire. Mr. Bowles should have some research. He has the Don McGuire home. And John McGuire was a former city council member and then later commissioner when they changed the government. He died in 1902. He sold his property to J.C. Nye, the former road commissioner, former city councilman. And his wife, they are the reasons and responsibility for the Crittenden home. The Crittenden home is actually up on Porter. I'm not trying to block the history. But please, this is too much to say yes tonight because there's so many things that talk about in the Adams Avenue CRA that this does not meet, particularly the infill in inner blocks with Porter Avenue being such a narrow margin. And we're martyring because we had to put a sprinkler system in. We want the people that you're developing for to be safe and alive? That's not a martyr thing, that's a life thing. That's a life safety thing. That's a guaranteed for property rights. And so I think that that's the time to me. The historic properties inventory is not done. This home, 13 units, gutted out of it to decrease density, still is a non-contributing property in Ogden City since 1998. Non-contributing. My friend Deborah owns it. Tremendous neighbor, great neighbor, but we're just continuing to impose in her backyard. So again, if it's not no tonight, please continue it. There's a packet for administration as well.
Thanks,
thank you.
Anybody else?
Sorry, that was J.C. Knight's house. That's the house that was there.
I don't know that I've ever come to a city council meeting and been so dejected. So I'm just going to read what I had written earlier.
Could you give us your name first?
Deborah Darrington. This unfortunately applies more to what you just voted on earlier, but I'm going to apply this to the Nine Rails district because that's where I live. That was my home, and I say that as a past tense now. Nine Rails has already had a master plan and design standards on paper. What it doesn't have is a consistent, enforced framework that developers and property buyers can count on, and that I, as a resident, can count on. Right now, decisions are being made property by property, deal by deal, and the district's historic character and the arts identity are absorbing the risk. I am absorbing the risk. I'm asking the council to commit to one thing tonight: a standing, enforcing a set of guidelines, not a suggestion, a requirement that applies to every future purchase or build in this district. Something that protects the historic buildings in the art district identity. We've spent years building it. Protect it, regardless of who's buying or how big their check is. I also want to raise a concern about the housing model driving some of this development, not this one. Large subsidized rental projects can pencil out well for the developers, but they don't necessarily build the kind of long-term invested ownership that this district needs to thrive and that this city needs to thrive. I'd like the council to prioritize pathways to individual owner-occupied affordable housing in this district. Homes people can actually put their roots down in, take pride in, and maintain over large-scale rental development that treats neighborhoods as returns on development investments rather than a place that I live. This district doesn't need more paper policies. What it does need is a plan the city can actually hold the line on every time for every property, and I'm asking you to be the ones that do it. I have been part of the Nine Rails district since before it was official. Through the years of planning between 2008 and 2018, it built a vision that I now call home. Month after month, I have watched that vision erode one development deal at a time because there's no enforced framework holding the line anymore. I'm asking for one thing: a standing, enforced set of guidelines, not a suggestion that applies to every future purchase or build in this district. Protect our historic character and protect our arts identity, regardless of who's buying it. I'm asking that you that the council prioritizes individual owner-occupied affordable housing here over any more large subsidized rental developments. This district needs people who put roots down, not projects that treat my neighborhood as a return investment.
Thank you. Have a hand online, Heath Sato.
Hi, he's Sato, Ogden resident. I wasn't originally going to comment on this. I have very mixed feelings about market rate project getting subsidies. I do like the developers hyper local to the project. I love that. I'm sure the developer will do a good job. But I think there are a lot of questions that have been raised, and I'm not sure we've really looked at the but-fors on this for TIF, and I would prefer to see this tabled and discussed more personally. Thanks.
Thanks, Heath. Anyone else? Okay, back to the board for discussion and resolution. What? Yes, sir. Sure. Ask away. Eric, make your way on up.
My question is, Could you hear me okay?
You're asking regarding just the blending in terms of the type of product?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if
how
I'm
well
the
it fits
best
into the-
position to speak to that, just because my component of this is just looking at the RDA participation. I know the Planning Commission has reviewed it and has provided comments on it. I'm not sure if anyone else has the capability to speak to that, but I don't personally.
Okay, thank you.
The developer, have you worked with planning? Yeah, I apologize, I don't have more for you there, but
that's okay.
Yeah, it's out of my scope, unfortunately.
Yep.
Any other questions? Well, we've got him. Okay.
I think I might have more of a comment than a question. And maybe a fellow council member can answer for me. I did ask in an email just about whether or not the project aligned with the Creative District Master Plan. I'm just reflecting on the arts coordinator, Lori Buckley, was speaking on the last project. And we haven't heard from, or maybe there's some type of email or something available. We haven't heard a response from how this would benefit the Nine Rails Creative Arts District with the Creative District Master Plan, potentially from a comment or remarks from the arts coordinator. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And in looking at the Creative Arts Master Plan as well, in just reflecting on the housing that's recommended in that plan, that it is, it's put in here, where is it? I think it's up a little bit. I thought I had it pulled up, but it was just smaller artist homes, doesn't list it as rentals, but just, it's item 7. Yeah, and I shared that in an email as well as council, and so I'm just curious if other council members had a moment to review that Creative Arts District Master Plan in reflection of this project.
Any reply? Any other comments? Anybody motion?
Chair, what would it look like if this agenda item were to be tabled till some questions that arose from
That
this?
is an option.
Okay. I make a motion to table Color Sky Homes participation and incentive agreement.
Okay, we'll give Glenn a minute to look at the calendar, because tables do need to be to a date certain. So we can give you a date.
Your next regular RDA meeting would be the 11th of August, unless you wanted to, well, we could do it that day and set aside some work session time before then, either the 4th or the 11th. Typically, it would be helpful if you do want to table that to give us some direction on what you would like to see, and so we can research that and prepare that as well.
So would you, I would like to see a review of how this is in line with the Creative Arts District Master Plan. And additionally, forgive me if I have the verbiage wrong, but in the packet that we just received with the Bonneville, the central Bonneville shoreline and that structure, and also the egress of that property, to make sure it is, to just have an opportunity to review all of that.
And did I hear you say you would like to hear from Lori Buckley?
Yes.
As well?
Thank you, Chair, yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion to table to August 11th, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a second? That motion fails for lack of second. So, this isn't in our rules. What do you do if you don't get a motion, Glenn?
Well, the question's still live because that was
Yeah.
just a motion to table it, so
Right.
there's still consideration, so you could make another motion.
Chair, I would make the motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2026-7
Second.
to approve and authorize that.
You second? Okay. Lopez, okay. We have a motion by Board Member Ritchie, second by Board Member Lopez, to adopt resolution 2026-7. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Myers.
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie.
Aye.
Board Member Washington.
Nay.
Board Member Lopez.
Yes.
Board Member Lundell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff.
Yes.
Chair Heyer.
Yes. That passes. Okay.
So, Chair, if I can, just a comment. I'm sensitive to Travis. It's beyond my scope, Travis. I'm sorry, to consume and digest the information that was handed to us this evening. For the move to table, I just have to put faith in our planning staff to have reviewed this properly, and our planning commission to have done their due diligence in reviewing this as well. I hesitated because we're subsidizing this development with TIF money, but because it's for ownership, it kind of pointed me the other direction to a yes vote for ownership in this particular neighborhood. I think it's important.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak for just a minute on that too. I was definitely kind of back and forth on this one as well, but I think generally tonight what we voted for was in support of housing, and we need housing. These are both affordable project, hopefully more attainable types of housing in a market that definitely needs it on both sides here of our votes tonight. So I'm supportive of housing and look forward to seeing both of these projects move forward.
Okay.
Chair, just one other comment.
Sure.
I think this is an awesome project. I don't love it, but I think it's the best use of property, and it does meet a need that we have in our city, has already been expressed. So when I say I don't love it, I like it. But could it be perfect? Yes, but I don't have an answer how. However, I trust that Cameron Lewis is your architect, and he is awesome. So, yeah, that's what tips my vote your way. So, thank you.
And I'll just take that lead as well, that it's difficult because I do agree that I would have liked some more conversation and presentation around how it fits directly in line with the vision and the Creative Arts Master Plan. And so I'm right around the corner from you. I'm excited to see how this project moves forward, and I do have full faith. And part of the hesitation was the 3-year occupancy, owner occupancy, and just seeing how that plays out. But congratulations, and I will be watching the development.
All right, comments from the executive director
None tonight, thanks.
and from board members. I'll look for
I'll
another
just
motion.
I'll just echo what Councilmember Lindell said about housing. I know it's a topic that's on the minds of everybody, and you know, of all the things we hear about that a lot, and about apartments, about homeownership, about all these things. And so I do appreciate, I wanted to say, I thought about this after the Lotus folks left, but I do appreciate their passion and their excitement, and I really do hope we see some positive things down there. And but anyway, yeah, housing's a big deal. So I think these are showing efforts of the city trying to do the best they can to help in that. So.
And we appreciate the risk that you're making too in putting forward this development.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.